Welcome to the most must-see podcast in pro wrestling history. Welcome to Mark's Side of the Ring. Our reviews, our opinions, our predictions, spoiler-free on all things AEW and WWE. I am your main Mark, and I am back in the flesh, Miguel Minetti, back from Tampa. Alongside today, just have one of my co-hosts of the two co-hosts, Fred DeCourt. What's going on, bro?
Not much. Can't complain. I'm glad to see you made it home safely.
I made it back. I walked all the way from Tampa. You left me there, bro. You took a flight, you piece of shit. You took a flight and left me there in the hotel room. I don't know how you could do it. I was thinking about walking to Dallas, but I walked my big ass home to New Jersey.
I had a flight to catch. I would have rather stayed in Tampa, but duty calls.
Well, it looks like this week we're missing Nick Ferentino. He's all out and about doing some big things. He'll be back next week to join us. But you guys did a really nice job. We had an awesome show last week talking about our WrestleMania feedback of WrestleMania 37. And Fred, I thought it was really cool for you to include. Obviously, you and I were there in person. And I'll give some quick thoughts on that as well today. But we also have a jam-packed episode with a lot of WWE news, especially that broke in the last 7 to 10 days or so. So we'll go ahead and just jump right on into things. I will kick it off by letting everyone know to please stay tuned to the very end, as we do have a special interview that's going to come at the very end of this episode with the one, the only Peter Rosenberg. So please stay on to check that out. It was really cool. We talked about a lot of really cool things. Obviously, him being there as well for WrestleMania 37. So you'll see that at the very end. That'll be at the very end of this episode here. But let's jump right on into things, Fred. I know you gave a ton of in-person perspective for WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you and I were at. I thought everything you said was pretty spot on about not only the show itself, but just the weekend experience. We had a ton of fun in Tampa. Beautiful city. I think it was your first time. I know it was my first time, right? Being in the city, correct?
Yeah, it was the first time in Tampa, and I would love to go back. It was a beautiful place.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great that we just happened to luck out. Our hotel was literally a hop, skip, and a jump away from where the wrestlers are staying at that beautiful Marriott. Our hotel was pretty nice too, but it paled in comparison to where we were staying, right?
Yeah, we had a nice spot. But yeah, I mean, where WWE was, that of course they had the best in town. And we were lucky, and unbeknownst to us, that it was right near us. It was happenstance. We were walking, and next thing you know, we walked into Shane McMahon coming out of a black SUV.
Yeah, I think you, I, and our friend Jerry that came with us, we were just walking up and down, the highway there on Tampa,
right,
or one of the side roads, and we started to we were going straight from the hotel, and then we were like, oh, let's hook a right here. We hooked a right. We saw this beautiful. We saw the Starbucks, saw this beautiful hotel, and all of a sudden, I think Jerry's the one that initially spotted him. Right? He was like,
"I think so, yeah."
Yeah, he was like, "Oh my God, it's Shane McMahon," and that's how it all happened. So,
and then next thing you know, we ended up at the bar there outside, and the rest is history. We planted ourselves there for the next 4 days, pretty much.
That's right. So, I'll give some quick thoughts on the experience overall. I mean, first and foremost, it goes without saying, the fans there were hot the entire show. I watched it back on TV, and I can tell you, while it sounded and looked great on television, I can promise you, unfortunately, because of the fact of the open air, anytime with open stadiums, and of course, people were safely, distant, wearing masks, it didn't sound as great as it was in person. I mean, the energy there, and we'll talk about later with Peter about the rain delay and everything that happened, but man, oh man, right? How pumped were those fans heading into Tampa, into Raymond James Stadium that day?
It was something special. I mean, we've both been to a ton of shows. I know I've been to, I think, over 150. I've lost count at this point. And I've been to shows with a lot of energy and a lot of excitement and anticipation. But this is different. This was, hopefully we'll never be able to recreate this again, Yeah. But like they said, 1 year, 1 month, and 1 day since we were, a part of something like that. And it was just incredible. I mean, WrestleMania is always exciting. It's always a special feeling when you walk through the gate and you go see the ring and the stage and all that. But the fact that I was seeing anything like that It could have been a house show, and the fact that I couldn't believe that this was happening. I still haven't processed. I'm waiting to process that, like, I actually went to a wrestling show, because now it's like it was really almost felt like a dream, because now we're back to reality.
Right.
It was that one weekend for now, and but it was. I believe I said it last week on the podcast. I've been to probably better WrestleManias as far as a card is concerned, bigger stars, maybe bigger matches. But just because of the circumstances, this one ranks up there for me as one of the top ones I've had the pleasure to attend. I mean, it was a great card, but even without the part timers and this and that, it's still it'll always hold a special place for me.
I want to ask you, did you get a chance to watch back the entire show 2 nights yet on Peacock?
So because I was getting caught up on so much content, I did get to watch the first night, and I got through part of the second. So I didn't finish the second. I may actually finish it tonight. I really want to see the triple threat. But what I will say about watching at least the first night back, I thought they did a really good job with the whole rain delay situation. When being there, it seemed like a mess, because it was so confusing. Like, 1 minute, we have the video package and all this hype, and then the next thing, Mike Rome's telling us we need to evacuate. And then the next thing we know, Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley's video package is playing, and we all run back to our seats.
Right.
So I didn't know how it came off on TV. What was that?
In our ponchos.
In our ponchos, like assholes, yeah. And thank God we got those $6 ponchos at the little market there at the hotel.
That's right.
Yeah. But but on TV, I thought they did a really good job. Those interviews backstage were awesome. In fact, I would like we talk about it a little bit later on with Peter Rosenberg about that situation. But one thing I didn't mention to him that I wanted to is those interviews were so good, I thought, and I would like to see them maybe include those more, like on pre-shows, say, because I thought it gave an exciting part to the show. And they used to do that sometimes on like the Sunday Night Heat before pay-per-view. They would do interviews and stuff like that. I think they should include more of that on the pre-show, especially when they're doing an hour pre-show, 2-hour pre-show. I mean, you got so much time to fill. What the hell?
I agree. I would love to see it. I did actually get a chance to listen to all the off-the-cuff interviews during the rain delay.
Yeah.
I think they hit a home run with that, right? 99.9% of them were spot on. I can't even remember the one that was maybe not the greatest, but it doesn't even come to mind right now. But I think everybody did a really nice job. You had to feel for someone like Sarah Schreiber too, right? Who's just like thinking of questions to ask right on the spot there. Obviously,
yeah, I mean,
the talent, they're pros, but for someone like Sarah, I don't even know if she was instructed on what to ask. I think she was just asking whatever came to her mind at that point.
At that point, it was so fast. I mean, who knows? I mean, she couldn't have had that much time to prepare, and it was one after the other. So it wasn't, some guys weren't even. They were just coming in, and then the next guy left. It wasn't even like it was a smooth, but it was nice because it felt raw. It felt real. It felt like this is, not supposed to be happening right now, which gave it kind of a cool element in the end.
Yeah.
I thought Kevin Owens did a bang-up job, but no surprise there. And one little small detail, I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but I thought it was really cool. When Drew McIntyre was getting interviewed, he got interviewed right after Bobby Lashley and MVP, right? And they were about to have their match.
Yeah.
And originally, Drew is on this side, right behind where Lashley and MVP left. And he says, hang on, let me go to this side. I don't trust them. Come. And it was a small detail, but it made so much sense. Like, some other people might not even have thought of that. Like, they would have just stood there, and yeah, MVP and Bobby Lashley can come right back and beat the shit out of him from behind.
Sure.
But he was smart enough to say, let me go to the other side. I just thought it was a little detail, but sometimes the little things make a big difference.
Sure, absolutely. Overall, the event was a smashing success. I know we had a ton of fun. We talked about it, at many length at this point. So, obviously, though, with the WrestleMania season coming to an end, right, we look forward to now on the horizon of WrestleMania 38 in Dallas, hopefully at a full capacity next year, which would be fantastic. One of the things, of course, though, that happens almost every year, unfortunately, right after WrestleMania is, and I even hate to use this terminology, but I think they call it a spring cleanup. So you guys, I know, touched on it last week a little bit as well too, but obviously WWE did their releases, and a plethora of names were unfortunately released from their contracts, most notably Samoa Joe and the Iconics, which we won't sit here and debate again. I know you guys talked about it a bit last week, you and Nick. I will say, I'll just give my quick thoughts on Samoa Joe. I was probably most shocked about him. I was definitely shocked about the Iconics just because of how much of a staple they were when they were together. Ever since they broke up, things have been a little bit different. I know Billy had some spotlight on SmackDown, Peyton, unfortunately not so much on Raw, but Samoa Joe just called WrestleMania. Like, he just called the damn show.
Poor bastard was out there in a poncho.
He was in a poncho, right? Him and Michael Cole took the reins. I don't know where Corey Graves was, but maybe because Lashley and McIntyre was the first match, it was a Raw match, and Michael Cole had to call the entire event. Maybe that's why they just kept Joe out there the entire time. But and I think Byron Saxton, they said his microphone got wet or something like that.
Yeah.
So he was getting probably re-mic'd up. But you have Samoa Joe out there. He's doing a good, I think they're on camera at least 10 minutes trying to come up with, as if they're weatherman, like, oh, we're going to start the show soon. And, we're all so excited to be back. We're just going to have to wait a little bit longer. I listened to his call the entire weekend. I think I got through most of the matches. I think I listened to everything that he was on. He did a great job. I always thought he was a great personality. I mean, maybe there's more behind the scenes that we don't know here, but why? Why release Samoa Joe? Like, that's the one thing I just can't understand.
I don't get it, because as much as I hated him being on commentary, I hated him being on commentary because I wanted him in the ring. But he was so good on commentary. And I kept saying, well, if and when he does get cleared, this is always going to be a career move for him. I viewed him like I viewed Taz. Like, Taz was a great wrestler, right, but ended up making a big name for himself as a commentator, Yeah. And from what I understand, he hadn't been cleared yet. So maybe WWE felt like because, they weren't getting money on their investment with him as an in-ring talent, it wasn't worth it. But you have a great color commentator that you can have for the next 20 years, because that career has a lot of longevity, because, you're not taking bumps. So I still don't know. I think they lost a great talent, whether it was in-ring or not. I mean, he's had years of experience all around the world. He could have been a great producer one day, I'm sure. I mean, there was just a lot of things I feel like Joe could have done. Obviously, there was something there that caused him to make this decision. But it still surprised me. I'm still upset about it. Him and the Iconics were probably the most two. And Mickie James, I know they haven't really utilized her, but, I have a soft spot for Mickie. I've been a fan of hers for a long time. Sure. I really wanted her to get a little push during this run. Never really came. And she just started doing work on the pre-show for NXT that week. So this was odd timing. It just really odd time. Like you said Samoa Joe called Mania. Billy Kay wrestled on WrestleMania. Sure, so some people like Tucker Knight, I get it. Okay, they haven't used him. As soon as they split him from Otis, I knew he was gone. What was that?
It's a future endeavor, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but it was inevitable. So Mojo Rawley apparently had been released actually earlier than this. They just didn't announce it till last, I guess it was Thursday, right? The 15th. Yeah. Yep. So, and again, unfortunate, but really no surprise. He had a lot of hype, no pun intended, in the beginning, but he hasn't really done much.
Only thing I'll say about him is that when he was doing the stuff with Gronk, Gronk's a huge name, right? That's in sports. I mean, you're not necessarily the biggest sports fan, but you knew exactly who Rob Gronkowski was even before he joined the WWE, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think he's real life, like, best friends with him. So
they are. I partied with his brother.
That's right.
Mojo. Well, I use that term loosely. I snuck into their hotel room at Mohegan Sun.
That's a story for another day.
That's a story for another day. But yeah. So anyway, they really are real life friends. Now I wonder if Gronk and WWE's I don't want to say falling out, because they didn't have a falling out, but not coming to fruition like they had envisioned, had a part to play in this. Because I guarantee you, if Gronk was still employed with WWE, Mojo wouldn't have been released.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, unfortunately, things happen. Obviously, we wish them all the best. I know for a fact Iconics will land on their feet. Samoa Joe will land on
Oh, for
their
sure.
feet. They're all either going to AEW, Impact, Ring of Honor. They're going somewhere.
And that's the good thing. I mean, I know I talk shit about AEW and things like that, but in reality, I'm happy for them that they now have somewhere else to go and not just work in bullshit indies for, you know, decent money, but not great money that will fizzle out anyway. The indies, you're hot when you get released, and then like within the next year, it kind of So at least they have possibilities to get full-time jobs with major companies. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing for the business. I mean,
Yeah. Speaking of Samoa Joe, Fred, I want to kind of shift focus here and talk about the two new additions to the commentary team, right? You got Adnan Burke, who is part of the MLB network. Right now, he's the lead anchor for Monday Night Raw.
Stay on the MLB network.
So, yeah, I was going to ask you your thoughts. It sounds like you're already giving a preview there. And then on the flip side for Friday Night SmackDown, brand new color commentator, Pat McAfee. I mean, dude, what a difference between the two, right?
Perfect. He is... Everything he has done with WWE has been pure gold. He is so off the cuff, just natural, he's not awkward. I mean, I can't give him any more praise. Phenomenal. And there's a reason they put him on SmackDown and not on Raw.
Yeah, SmackDown's become the A show. There's no doubt about
that. It really has.
I think McAfee did tremendous in his debut. I don't know if you heard him, but he actually said the next day on his show he thought he stunk. He thought he
yeah. He was a really. I know. Well, sometimes they're the hardest critics on themselves, which I guess is why they're so good, right?
Exactly.
There's a great video on YouTube. I actually discovered it last night. It's on the Pat McAfee YouTube page.
Huh?
It details. It's like an 8-minute video. Details his whole first day on the job.
Oh,
Vince McMahon it's really cool, actually. I meant to tell you actually privately in conversation and forgot, so I'll say it on air. Yeah, Vince McMahon's on it, actually. Like, it's cool. Yeah, so just type in Pat McAfee first night or whatever, and it'll come right up. Cool little 8-minute video.
Yeah, I mean, like, what a great job. I mean, obviously, when you're working with Michael Cole, right? Also, he's a pro's pro at this point, right? 30 years in the business at this point for WWE. Him and Cole and McAfee have tremendous amount of chemistry. So it made sense to put Pat there. Now I understand why Corey Graves got shipped to Raw, because by far he's the best thing on Monday Night Raw. Because I don't know about you, but I was never a fan of Byron Saxton. And now Adnan Burke, 2 weeks in a row, he's just not hot for me, man. How about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. Because at first I was like, oh, that sucks. They're moving Corey Graves off of SmackDown, because I always viewed him and Cole as probably the two best.
Sure.
But McAfee is phenomenal, and he makes sense on Fox. He's a big name. He's a former NFL star. It's perfect. And Raw honestly can use Corey Graves more than SmackDown can, especially now. Yeah, it's funny. The first Raw he was on was the one after Mania, and we were watching it a little bit in our hotel room. Yep. And I remember I was getting ready. We were going to get dinner, and I was in the background listening, and I heard it, and I was like, this guy sucks. And I don't normally throw criticism, you know that, but I just was like, this guy sucks. So I thought, well, maybe he'll be a little bit better this week. And, he's not terrible. I mean, they've had worse. Hell, Mike Adamle did commentary. It doesn't get much worse than that, probably. But he's dry. I don't know. From what I understand, he's a fan, but
doesn't sound like it.
He doesn't sound like it. No,
sound like he's a fan at all.
No. So I don't know if he was a fan 20 years ago, if it was one of those situations or what. But and I hope I give him the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully he does get better. I mean, it's not an easy job by any means.
And 3 hours, right? I mean, 3 hours is 3 hours. It's
right.
Much harder than 2. I have to imagine.
So. Oh, big time. So it's not, like I said. Yeah, it's not an easy job. It's only his second week on the job. But sometimes you just know whether somebody has it or they don't.
Yeah, I agree. I want to get your thoughts on Raw the last 2 weeks since post-WrestleMania. We were hoping for a big shift in the stories as far as, trying to spice things up a little bit. But I have to be honest with you, man. And, I try not to be critic. I know Nick makes fun of us because you and I are huge WWE marks. I feel like Raw is still a bit dry, right? Like it's like they just can't figure out that magic that SmackDown has. And I don't know if it's the 2 hours versus the 3 hours, and I'm sure that plays a big part of it, but it almost feels like it's two different companies going at it. Don't you feel that way sometimes?
Well, the funny thing is I decided to not have a drink tonight on this week's podcast. And now after you asking me this question, I kind of regret my decision because I'm going to need one. But no, I mean, regardless of how good or bad a show is, 2 to 3 hours does make a big difference.
Sure.
But with that being said, SmackDown is still a better show regardless of that or not. I mean, the Raw after WrestleMania, I wasn't expecting it to be as good as a normal Raw after WrestleMania just because what usually makes that Raw so good is the crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, the biggest thing. And I wasn't expecting to do like anything really crazy because there's no fans.
Sure.
But it felt even a little flatter than I had expected. I will say that Charlotte's return was cool.
Yeah.
On Raw. I thought she did a great promo. I thought she did a great job this week. Her getting suspended is interesting because it's almost like they just put her back on and now they're taking her off again. But we'll see how long it really lasts.
Sure.
But I'd say she's been the best part of Raw the last 2 weeks. Lashley wasn't on Raw this week, which was interesting. I'm not complaining about that. I think that's good. I think I've said that for years, that guys shouldn't be on every week.
You know who else wasn't? You else who else was noticeably not on Raw this past week, which I thought was interesting, was Bray Wyatt. He did the thing 2 weeks ago, the backstage, right?
That's right.
But now Alexa Bliss, on the other hand, was. But I thought it was interesting that there was no mention or videos of Bray Wyatt at all, almost as if they're putting the Bray Wyatt Alexa Bliss thing maybe off to the side, or a Bliss is going her own route, and maybe, I don't know if the Fiend or Bray's going to be repackaged. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it has me concerned. I'll tell you why. So that's another 2 big highlight for me from the Raw the night after Mania was the Firefly Funhouse, the return of it.
That was great.
I thought it was very well done. The Bliss Alexa's Playground on Monday, I thought was phenomenal. I loved the Lily background, how they doctored the photos of her as a child. I thought that was really cool. And I'm torn because I loved how she called out the women's division. Right? Because you need to eventually, move on. But now's not the time to move on. You just created this big angle that was the only salvageable part of that match, was what was going to happen with Bray and her. To stop it now, like what I don't want to jump to conclusions. I can't see them just ending that after everything that happened, unless it was simply all it was their way of breaking them apart and going in different directions. So maybe there wasn't a long-term plan for them to feud, because what, are you really going to have them in a match? I mean,
Sure.
They could. Intergender wrestling's been talked about for a while. It could happen. But maybe all that was at Mania was just to have her turn on him, and that was their way of fresh starts, Well, we'll see.
I think that poses a couple big questions, right? Because one, where does Bray Wyatt go from here, right?
Yeah.
Number 2, now looking back, why the hell did Randy Orton have to beat him when Randy Orton, which I'm not complaining about this part, he just lost clean to Riddle this past week on Raw, right?
I know.
Which is awesome for Riddle's character, right? You and I had the chance actually to meet Riddle. I know you talked about it last week. He was awesome. He's actually like the nicest guy. He's exactly as he is on air. That's really
awesome.
His personality. And we were I remember texting you, very happy for him. But looking back at it now, like, what the hell was the point? Why did Randy Orton beat The Fiend? I know it was to separate Bliss and Bray Wyatt, but did Bray needed to absorb that loss? I think he needed that win more than anybody going into WrestleMania weekend. I
100% agree. The only thing that I said about that match was it sucks he lost, but okay, they were building towards something.
Yeah.
With her and him. Pronouns, pal. Alexa and Bray. And now, if that's not the case, then Bray really got screwed at WrestleMania. Because if he's just going to start afresh now, Really? Like,
Does a part of you feel like the Fiend character might be over?
if they're treating him like that, it's gonna be. I mean, shit. I thought for sure that match of Mania was his.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
Yeah.
And then when he lost, but the way they did it, okay, he should have won, but I get what they did. But now, I mean, yeah, the Fiend will be over if they continue booking him like they have.
It's been questionable booking, I have to say. Like, his character is obviously very mysterious and very, from a different universe type of thing, which gives him that mystique, cool look to it. But you think about the pay-per-view right before the shutdown, right? Saudi Arabia, right? Whatever one was, Crown Jewel, I think, loses to Goldberg in like 10 seconds or whatever it was. I don't know, 30 seconds, 45 seconds realistically. I thought at the time that was the worst thing that could happen to him, right? I look back to his match with Seth Rollins in Hell in a Cell, right? Where I think Seth beat him or got disqualified and fans were legit booing. This is before, obviously, COVID.
That match did nobody any favors. That match screwed Bray and it screwed
right. But they were able to come back from it, right? They came back from the Seth Rollins debacle. They came back from the Goldberg debacle. But this, like, now I feel like this was their last chance with Orton, with the match at WrestleMania with Orton, and Orton winning now just kind of almost demolishes anything, right? Anything that the Fiend was doing.
So, I mean, you think about it. So, yeah, he had that big loss against Goldberg that everybody was up in arms about, right? And then he beat Cena at Mania. And it was supposed to be a regular match, whatever. We know the story. And then that turned into, over the summer, him feuding with Braun.
Yeah.
And then actually winning the title at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Right? Roman comes back, spears him. Okay, triple threat the next week when they did Payback that week later. Roman beats him. And then I thought they were going to do a Roman Bray feud.
Yep.
And then the draft happens. And Bray goes to Raw, starts a thing with Orton. So he never got any retribution. And I hate even saying that word now. But any retribution against Roman. Never got a rematch, nothing. That lost the title. That was it. Goes to Raw, starts his program with Orton. Gets burned at fucking TLC. And does this huge comeback. Okay, cool. This is now he's getting his moment.
Right.
It's just I'm having a hard time finding something to say. Well, yeah, well, but there's no buts right at this point anymore.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Bray, right? Fiend, Bray Wyatt, whatever it is. I was optimistic his night after WrestleMania when he cut that awesome Firefly Funhouse to see what was next for him, but. And again, I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing he wasn't on Raw last week. I just hope that they actually have something in mind for him. So that remains to be seen. But contrary to that, on the flip side of things, how about Cesaro on SmackDown, right? Talk about, well, first of all, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, SmackDown has a totally different vibe than Raw. I understand that SmackDown, right, Friday, big Fox, big deal for them. That's my one thing I wish is that SmackDown was on Mondays and now Raw on Fridays, because I almost feel guilty because it's much harder to watch the show live on Fridays than it is on a Monday night because obviously Monday's usually a work night.
Right.
But man, what a great show SmackDown is. I enjoy it every week, whether I get to watch it live or check it out. Usually Saturday mornings if I can't watch it live. But I think one of the brightest spots of WrestleMania was the push for Cesaro. Right? I mean, this past Friday on SmackDown, how many times did they show that move that Cesaro did, the no hands, whatever they're calling it, with Seth Rollins? Like 5 times, right?
Yeah, they showed a lot. I remember when they first showed it the first time, I said, oh, okay, cool. They're showing it again. That's good. Then they showed it again, and then again, and then again. Literally, it was like, 5 times. I said, wow, they really are going with this push. This is not like a stop-start thing. They're right now, they're on it.
Yeah.
They even teased. Yeah, no, this is huge. They teased him and Roman.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at first, it made it seem like it was going to maybe happen at Backlash. But then, Seth got involved, so we're going to continue Seth and
which I'm all for. If they're doing the slow build, that's awesome.
Save it. But they obviously, whether it happens or not, they have plans to get to Roman Cesaro. That's huge.
Yeah.
Even if it's for Roman to beat him clean, that's fine. The fact that he's getting that spot.
Right. Yeah, I don't think there's any question that Cesaro is going to dethrone Roman at this point, right? If Roman successfully defended against Edge and Daniel Bryan, which tremendous match, right? Make sure you guys go back and watch it if you haven't seen it yet, which I'm sure everybody watching this has. But if he's able to successfully retain the title against Daniel Bryan and Edge, I don't think there's anybody besides The Rock or Brock Lesnar, a massive name at this point, that's dethroning him. But I think him and Cesaro would be a tremendous match. I do like that they're doing the slow build for it. I can tell you that I was genuinely shocked. I don't know about you, but I was genuinely shocked when Seth Rollins interrupted that match on Friday because I did not see that coming.
No, I didn't either because I really thought they were going in a direction of Roman and Cesaro, you know? So I thought, okay, they're done with him and Seth. So, yeah, so I thought, okay, this is now, this is, so the fact that Seth came out, I was like, oh, okay, cool. So they're not, save it, or maybe they will do a triple threat, but I can't see them doing 2 triple threats back to back of different, if they did Edge, Bryan, and Roman again, I could see that, but not a different triple threat. I think what I am curious though, if Roman isn't facing Cesaro next, who is he facing next? Because Edge and Daniel weren't on SmackDown, which I thought wasn't bad at all. I thought that was good. But I don't know if I see either one of them getting another match. I thought they were going to make a story about Edge's shoulders, right? Because they weren't technically down, like Bryan's was down, but whatever. But they didn't really mention that. So I'm curious where they go with Roman. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, after him beating Daniel Bryan and Edge, so defiantly, I don't know when and if he's ever going to take a loss. He may not lose till April 2nd of 2022 at this point, or 2023.
I'm looking forward to that. I want to see a long title reign. I think he's going to become the most dominant champion.
I think so. They're finally getting the Roman they wanted 5 years ago.
Yep, I agree, 100%. The one thing I will say, too, about SmackDown is I was also genuinely surprised that there was, like you mentioned, no Edge and Daniel Bryan. I wanted to ask you, do you think Edge is just part-time from here? Because I know his contract was never really explained on whether he'd be full-time or not, but I kind of just expect him to be on SmackDown, maybe start a new feud with somebody.
Yeah, so it's funny, originally when he came back, the talk was that he was signed for 3 matches a year, but I don't know how true, the injury that he had didn't help that because it kind of, clouded things up a little bit as far as how many he was going to actually do. But, he wrestled on Raw the one time against Orton. He's wrestled on SmackDown against Jey Uso. So he's had a couple of random matches that I wouldn't have expected. Right. And he has said in interviews that he doesn't want to come back. He's basically called out Brock Lesnar. Like, he doesn't want to come back.
That's exactly why I'm saying, that's why I asked the question, because I heard him say that he doesn't want to be a part-timer. In fact, he's had a very interesting, if you want to go quickly on his timeline of his return, right? He comes back at the Royal Rumble 2020.
Right.
Immediately goes into the feud with Orton, right?
Right.
Concerto taken out, obviously, part of a storyline. Fast forward in the middle, 3 weeks before WrestleMania, 2 weeks before WrestleMania, the pandemic hits, right? Mm-hmm. I think he cuts one promo in the PC era before WrestleMania.
Right.
Match with Orton at WrestleMania. Takes a month or 2 off, right? Just to come back to do the greatest match ever at Backlash over the summer, also in the PC with Orton. Then gets injured, right? So has then not to be seen until the Royal Rumble this past year in the Thunderdome. Has the match the next night against Orton, their final blow-off, just to kick over to SmackDown. Then obviously set up right to WrestleMania with the triple threat with Bryan and Roman. So he really hasn't had a chance to show whether he's going to be in like multiple matches a year or not, because the shutdown happened. He had the match with Orton, got injured, came back, did Rumble, did WrestleMania.
Right.
So it'll kind of be interesting to see if he's going to be a full-timer or not, or more of a part-timer than Brock.
Yeah, I think, what I think? I think he's going to be a I don't know how to say this, a part full-timer.
Yeah.
So, like, Brock, normally he would have done Mania, and occasionally maybe he would have done another one, but most likely he wouldn't be back till SummerSlam, say, right?
Right.
So I could see Edge, though, maybe not working Backlash, but working Money in the Bank
right
in June.
Which would make sense. He's the
then
first.
not work almost like an every other. Then not working July, and it could fluctuate. He could do 2 in a row, then not do 2. It could be whatever. So I could see him working Money in the Bank. I could see him winning Money in the Bank.
Sure, yeah.
And then I mean, he has to work SummerSlam, I would assume.
Yeah,
he was supposed to work SummerSlam last year. That was supposed to be, from what I understand, the Orton blow off.
Right. And honestly, I think with the news coming out now, right, and we'll kind of transition to this, our last topic here, with the news coming out that the next time WWE puts this in front of fans, right, fans on the air, it's going to be permanent. And obviously, what better way? They're saying, the end. I know they have the contract with the Thunderdome to the end of July. At that point, you might as well just wait the extra 2-3 weeks and go SummerSlam as the full-time return. So I think if anything, maybe Edge is just waiting until the summer to say, you know what, I'll come back full-time. But at this point, you can afford to not have me for 2 to 3 more pay-per-views, right? You guys have enough talent to go the final couple months of the Thunderdome.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm big on not overexposure, especially of talents like Edge.
Yeah.
That, are older. I think it makes it more special when they don't wrestle every pay-per-view and they're not on every SmackDown. And so I wouldn't be mad if we don't see Edge again till the SummerSlam build-up.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean that's a good point. Does Edge want to wait until there are fans again?
Yeah.
Since it is on the horizon, it's not like we don't know.
Right.
I mean, we don't, but we pretty much have an idea that it will be SummerSlam and then on. And in fact, in their conference, the WWE had a conference call today with their shareholders, and they said that they don't plan on touring until the second half of 2021, and that has been the talk. Well, August brings you right into the second half of 2021, so it makes sense. So yeah, that brings up the question with Edge. It brings up the question with Brock. Do we see Brock come back now? Once fans are back, does that happen? Much to a lot of people's dismay, will Goldberg be having another match? He, as far as I know, does have 3 a year. So he's only done 1, right? He just did the Rumble. Yeah. So he's got 2 left this year. Now, news also came out this week that it is most likely that WWE will have a Saudi show by the end of 2021.
Sure.
Now, I will be pissed if they get some big shit and we don't get anything here with everything but whatever. Well,
I think SummerSlam, I think it's fair to say that, or safe to say, I should say, that SummerSlam is going to have definitely Goldberg. It's probably going to have Lesnar. It may even have Cena at this point. I think SummerSlam is going to be the geared up. And it's good timing. It makes sense, right? Things are finally starting to go back to normal. It sounds like. It looks like there's light at the end of the tunnel, right, with the pandemic, with vaccinations and all that. So what better way than this time around, where they know it's not a one-off, make SummerSlam almost feel like WrestleMania again.
Right, the return, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would complain about that, right? Everyone would be thrilled. This time you have fans back full time. There's been some chatter about where SummerSlam should take place. I think you and I and a lot of our fans and people that are watching and that are wrestling fans can agree it's probably going to be somewhere that has an outside open venue, right, just to keep things safe. What better way? I know we're talking about this off air, right? We're Jersey guys here. I say bring that shit to MetLife Stadium. So Vince McMahon, WWE, if any of you personnel are watching our show here, listening to us, we are campaigning for SummerSlam to happen at MetLife Stadium.
I'm on board. I'm totally on board. I mean, hell, you put it anywhere in the Northeast, I'll be happy. I've been clamoring for years for a show at Yankee Stadium. Whether that ever happens, who knows? Citi Field, whatever. Put it somewhere in the Northeast, and I'll be happy. Boston was supposed to get it last year. Will they get it this year? Who knows?
Sure.
A rumor came out today on PW Insider that Arizona and Texas are being discussed. Makes sense. They're both fully open, and that they have outdoor venues. But Texas getting WrestleMania next year in Dallas, I don't see them doing Dallas back to. I mean, that would be weird. And Houston, I guess. You're not going to Austin, mate, but I mean, really, all you got, as big as Texas is, as far as a big venue in a big city, the only other one besides Dallas would really be Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey,
Arizona, Phoenix could happen. Who knows? But yeah, I'd be happy if it was in the Northeast, MetLife Stadium being
and I think
the number one selection.
On behalf of all wrestling fans, to say we're very excited for the full-time return to fans. Fred, before we sign off, and again, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you stick around because the back half of this is our interview with Peter Rosenberg, who was
the best part
enough to jump on a little bit earlier today. Fred, I wanted to ask you real quick, just because it's fresh off of WrestleMania, you see that Logan Paul's going to be fighting Mayweather?
Well, he better buckle up.
I said, man, he wants a debt. Like, man, I can't imagine him fighting Mayweather. Who would agree?
If he thought that stunner was something from Kevin Owens at WrestleMania, he's not even going to see Mayweather coming.
It's going to feel like a Swedish massage compared to
literally. Yeah, exactly. He's going to need a few after.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be a lot of fun. That goes down first Saturday in June. So make sure you guys definitely tune in for that as well too. But guys, before we do kick it over to our interview with Peter Rosenberg, as always, just want to make sure you guys know, follow all of our episodes. You can catch us at TruExact Radio on all platforms. We're talking YouTube, we're talking Spotify, we're talking iTunes, anywhere that you get your podcasts, any platform that you get any of your podcasts listening to. As well, too, you can find us on our website, TruExactRadio.com. Make sure we do have our own Twitter handle. That's Mark Side of the Ring. You can follow us there on Twitter, and we're at TruExact Radio on Instagram, as well as our website. We do have merchandise. Please buy some merch, some shirts. We got some cups. We got masks. We got all kinds of really cool memorabilia. Support us. We love support. We appreciate all the love and support and feedback that we get week in and week out. We'll continue to do this show. We have a lot of fun doing it. So, Fred, thanks for joining on, my friend. And for everyone else, stay tuned for Peter up next. Thank you.
Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next guest joining us needs no introduction, but you can catch him as one of the hosts of Ebro in the Morning on Hot 97 and one of the hosts of the Michael K Show, which airs simulcast on both ESPN Radio and the Yes Network, and special WWE correspondent, ladies and gentlemen, the former WWE 24/7 champion, Peter Rosenberg. Peter, what's going on, man? How are you?
Guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here, and that's it, man. Looking forward to talking some wrestling.
Absolutely, absolutely. We look forward to having you on. We thank you, I should say, for having you on. Fred and I had the chance to meet you briefly at the hotel WrestleMania weekend at the Marriott Hotel over there, and we had a nice conversation. So we're looking forward to kind of getting some thoughts. So we'll kind of just kick it off, and obviously you being part of the crew for WrestleMania weekend. First show in 1 year, 1 month, and 1 day with actual fans in the building. So, Peter, wanted to just kind of jump right off and ask you there, what was going through your mind and everyone's mind that weekend leading up into WrestleMania 37?
You know, everyone was really excited. I mean, there was really a palpable excitement to have fans back. I mean, you could argue that one thing we've learned, during this whole experience is that, fans may be more important to WWE than any other form of sports or entertainment out there. Fans are just such a big part of the feel, the atmosphere, helping decide sort of where stories go and how characters are received. They just play such a huge part. And, for me, I had only come back. I came back to WWE. I worked one pay-per-view, Fastlane in Philadelphia last year, and that was the Sunday before the NBA shut down. So we were in the building that day, and it was a little weird, and there was lots of hand sanitizer, and people starting to be, oh, should we shake hands? Should we not? Ha, ha, ha. No one quite knew what was happening, but I don't think anyone would have guessed that no one would be in a building with fans again for a year and a month.
We were actually at that pay-per-view in Philadelphia. And I remember thinking, it was weird. We're like, is this safe? It'll be all right, and we'll be okay. And little did we know what would come later that week. The world practically ending. I say that Wednesday, I think it was the 11th, was almost like the end of the world, And And then we had the honor of being there for WrestleMania this year. So we've almost been, that gap, that year, month, and a day, we were at the end and the beginning. So I wanted to ask you, we had the pleasure of being there as fans, but you working it, like, was the feeling backstage different than any other feeling you've had working backstage before the pandemic? Like, was there just an extra level of excitement than even WrestleMania's previous that you had, the pleasure of working on?
It was definitely different. It was a weird day because as everyone's getting geared up, the weather on Saturday starts setting in, and it started pouring.
Right.
So the doors opened unusually early. The doors were 4:30, which is, generally we might be rehearsing the kickoff show, up until 5:55, or something like that. And in this case, kickoff this year was at 7. So we could have been out there till 6:50, and, fans would come in only for the last hour. Right. So,
right.
So maybe till 5:50 when fans are about to walk in, then fans walk in, you leave and you come back. And with the weather being what it was this weird combination of excitement about fans being back. But then there was also a level of tension because the weather was so questionable and no one knew how it was going to affect the start of the show, and everyone sort of looking at their phones and hearing weather reports and hearing different rumors. So while there was really strong excitement about fans, I will say the mood was definitely affected by the fact that no one knew what was going to happen weather-wise.
So, and I appreciate you sharing that. I want you to, if you don't mind, take us back because the weather, Saturday during the day was beautiful, I remember, right? It was sunny out, it was warm, then the weather starts settling in, right? The rain starts downpouring. Us fans, we were kind of tied into the concourse there while I know production and crew was trying to get everything all tidied up. But then at some point, the weather lets up, right? And Vince McMahon opens the show with the entire roster, which was an amazing moment, welcomes fans back, America the Beautiful is sung, and then all of a sudden, after the introduction, we get the notice that there's thunderstorms in the area. So what was going through your guys' mind when the second notice came in, like, oh, okay, we have to pause WrestleMania and we don't know how much we're going to have to pause it for, how long we're going to have to pause it for?
So I was informed before the show started that, Kayla, Braxton, and I should be prepared because they may need us to just hang out it should delays come. And so I was prepared for that, obviously. And, frankly, as a broadcaster, you sort of get excited about not knowing what's going to happen. And are we going to have to ad lib and freestyle? This will be fun to some degree. At least I operate that way.
Right.
But when the night one kickoff show ended, I watched Vince McMahon open the show. And then I walked away from the desk, 50 feet away from the desk to watch sort of the open and everything that was going on. And then one of my producers runs up and grabs me and is like, they're delaying the show. We got to go back on right now. And I had literally just sort of been mentally getting into the place of show's over, weather has passed, let's start WrestleMania. Right. And then it was like a run back to set. Switch positions, throw your headset on, let's go. It was crazy. I mean, it was a really unique circumstance. I mean, as you guys know, it was the first weather delay ever at WrestleMania, which is pretty incredible when you think about there have been 37 of them. I don't know what, like 15, 20 of them outside. So the fact that it was the first weather delay ever made it a completely unique circumstance. So yeah, that was a wild card. Like I did not realize when the kickoff show ended that we were going to be back on camera 5 minutes later, because I assumed when Vince McMahon came out and spoke, that was it. We were off to the races.
Yeah, I mean, when after that amazing open, I mean, I had goosebumps that were, so big, it was crazy. And then after that video package, there was no pyro. And I said, okay, maybe because of the rain, the pyro they couldn't do right now. And then when Mike Rome, because, in the crowd, we heard Mike Rome, obviously not the announcers, telling us that we need to evacuate. At first, I thought he was kidding. Like, it didn't resonate. I'm like, well, I don't know why he would be joking about that, but I'm trying to tell myself, oh, it must be a joke. WrestleMania is not on April Fool's this year, but it has to still be a joke. And it was like, you talk about the wind getting taken out of your sails. I mean, it was terrible. But, yeah, I mean, how lucky WWE has been all these years to avoid this, and it finally caught up. I actually sent out a tweet prior. I said only Vince McMahon can get the weather to stop before the live showtime, because it had,
I know it really.
And then it was like it bit him in the ass. It ended up coming in.
Well, and it was hardest probably for Bobby and Drew, who then were opening the show, and that's a really tough spot to be in. And I thought they still had a really great match. I know I heard mixed things about how people took that match, but I really enjoyed it, and I just thought they were in a really tough spot. You have this emotional start to the show, the surprise Vince McMahon appearance, all the superstars on stage, America the Beautiful, here we go. And then boom, everyone's told to evacuate. And then 30 minutes later, you come back and do it again. Really hard spot to perform in. I thought they did a great job considering.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think people would have been more positive about that match. If it, that hadn't happened. Because, it's hard to get people back up after being up so much and then down to get, that's a hard task. But I think they, like you said, I think they did a great job.
Peter, I wanted to ask you, what were your thoughts on the go with the promos, live, unscripted, go with it the first 30 to 40 minutes? Did you get a chance to watch that back? I know you were at the desk with Kayla, but did you get a chance to listen to all of those promos live right there?
Yeah, I did. And I thought it was great. Like, I don't really know what people thought of it, but I loved it. I thought it was unique and cool. And whenever you get these guys and girls just able to go, and the people that they chose were all people who could really talk, and they have a chance to freestyle and sort of get creative. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was a really unique, it was almost like one of those opening intro packages like they would have for Saturday Night's Main Event or like Survivor Series or Royal Rumble, like an old school package where you're hearing from all the superstars, except this was live and being freestyled. So, what I love about radio and broadcasting in general is the live of it all. Like, that's so what makes it great to me. So to me, all of it, that whole thing, I think will be relived for a long time. I don't even know if in the moment people appreciated how cool that was. But after a year, you finally get this moment, and then you get this crazy hiccup with the weather. And now you have everyone just scrambling. To me, it added a layer of chaos that was really fun.
Yeah, and you could just feel the energy from the superstars that were thrown right on set there, right? Everyone, you could see the goosebumps. You could feel that live energy. Everyone was just ready to go. They were excited. So it ended up making for a really cool moment. I want to get your thoughts on WrestleMania altogether, but just one more thing on the weather. So we fast forward to Sunday. Sunday, different story a little bit. It downpours the entire day, leading up to 20 minutes before showtime. Was there kind of that chaotic scene, same thing as Saturday on Sunday too? Or did you guys know that by showtime on Sunday, things were going to be fine?
Everyone was saying it should be good, but we had the same sort of, we were in the same position in terms of expecting to hang out, which I did. I mean, Kayla and I sat there for, 2.5, 3 hours on Sunday also. So we were under the same instructions to be prepared. And the weather was actually a lot crazier during the kickoff on Sunday. It was windier. It was raining for a lot of it. There was actually a crazier energy in the air weather-wise Sunday during kickoff. But then by the time we got to showtime, it felt clear, and I was pretty confident they wouldn't need us again. I felt pretty good, like this is going to happen. And I was watching the radar, and it looked pretty clear. But yeah, up until then, no, it felt crazy again throughout the whole day. Plus, it's not a brand new stadium. So like throughout the day when it's pouring, there are spots backstage where water's just pouring through. It's a football stadium. So right. It's chaotic. And you might have even seen like above the ring, you could see the water bubbles hanging down from the canopy. So like it was a very interesting sort of, maybe one day it's a footnote to this WrestleMania, but I thought it made for a very interesting couple of days energy wise.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think for the first show back, it gave it another element, like you said, live TV. And sometimes those things make their own moments, that element of live TV that anything can happen. And
you can't have that with a Thunderdome. Like the Thunderdome is great and it serves its purpose, but it's ultimately a big recording studio.
Right. Ironically, the Thunderdome, right?
Right, exactly. To tape a television show. Yeah. But when you go back to an outdoor stadium and you go back to live fans, It's live, pal. It's no studio anymore. This is all live, and I think when you get the live crowd and you're outside and you have weather elements, it shifts a little bit from entertainment to sport. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So,
I'm sorry. You can.
No, I was going to ask. So, Peter, obviously unique circumstances, right? First show back in over a year with fans. It's WrestleMania, right? The Super Bowl of pro wrestling of WWE. Out of all 37 WrestleManias, would you put this show, just based on all the circumstances plus the actual card itself, would you consider it one of the best WrestleMania shows that you've ever had the chance to watch before?
I do not know yet where I would place it. It's one of those things that just needs time for me to go back and really see how I feel about it as a show. You know, when you're and when you're there and you're working, you're almost so close to it that it's even harder to really take in the way I took in other WrestleManias. But you know, I think it's instantly ahead of sort of the lowest tier. Like, it's definitively not in the lowest tier.
Sure.
I think it starts out in the mid tier, probably mid high, because of the circumstance. And then it's a matter of, you know, was it a good enough card to catapult it into the top 10, that echelon, which is a really tough, that's a really tough rarefied air to get into. You know, when you think about the all-time great cards, which for me are probably, you know, 3, 4, 18, 19.
19's so underrated, I feel.
Yeah, I love 19. 17's good. 14, 30.
Yep.
So 31 was good. So I don't know where it ends up landing. I think Saturday can push it pretty far. You know, I think the pretty much consensus was that Sunday was not Saturday.
Right.
But Saturday was special. I mean, Saturday was really, it was a rare night where, like, I felt like the entire wrestling world walked away from an event with extremely high expectations, a lot of doubt, and all walked away being like, that was a great show. That's how I felt about Saturday. I think Saturday basically couldn't have graded any higher.
Yeah, no, Saturday from top to bottom, I think, was great. And I was happy Sasha and Bianca closed it out. I think that was the right call. I mean, circumstances with the weather, but Drew and Bobby opening the show, I thought was a great call. I felt Drew should have that honor of being the first guy, you know, coming out for his match. And yeah, the second night, it's funny. Going in, I thought the second night was going to be better. I honestly did. I just thought the first night had great matches, but I thought the second night was a little bit better. But overall, yeah, I mean, night one definitely was a better night. I will say, though, that the main event on night two was probably the best match of the entire weekend. And I would put that as one of the best Mania matches in history. Not necessarily the whole show, but that match, if you want to rank like best matches, that triple threat was phenomenal, I thought.
I agree. And I want to go back and watch it again, because that one I actually did watch. I went out and watched it in the crowd, and it felt great being there, but I would like to watch it again and see how it felt on television. But that's a great point. I mean, I thought the Saturday card was better, but that Sunday main event was so great and so perfectly executed that I thought it made up for a lot. What I thought was tough on Sunday was the first few matches. There just wasn't a lot for people to sink their teeth into early. Mm-hmm. And I think it closed great. So I want to go back and watch it again, but I do agree that the strength of the triple threat sort of catapulted night two into a better space than it would have been in otherwise.
Did you feel that energy during the triple threat match, Peter, right? Like, the fans were we were on our feet the entire match, right? And I think that match, more than probably any other match that entire weekend, felt like this is WrestleMania. Like, this is that marquee match that we've been waiting for. No, it did. It lived up to it. And the crowd, you could feel it the entire time. You know, there were other matches to me that felt very WrestleMania also, but didn't feel necessarily like, ooh, this is the huge moment of WrestleMania. I thought the AJ and Omos tag match with New Day had a very Mania feel to it.
but when in terms of a match, and same with Bad Bunny, the Bad Bunny match was great and felt impactful.
Yeah.
I thought the Sammy and KO match played out great as well. But when it came to something that felt like, okay, this is main event WrestleMania, yeah, it absolutely delivered in that way.
Right. Yeah, and I also thought I want to get your opinion on the Sheamus Riddle.
Fantastic.
Right? I mean, I was excited for it, but it far exceeded my expectations.
Oh yeah, I mean, me too. I don't think I was that up for that match. Story wise, it might have been on the bottom of the list in terms of a real story to sort of sink your teeth into and a history between them, and they delivered. I mean, I had one friend who told me he thought it was the best match either of them ever had in WWE. It was really well done.
Yeah, very well done.
Phenomenal match. Peter, last question before we let you go. What was your favorite match of the entire weekend? Was it the triple threat, or you got another match in mind?
I mean, Seth Cesaro was fantastic.
That was good too.
They delivered, but you also, you expected that. It's kind of like that was what was supposed to happen. I really think Bianca and Sasha was tremendous. And I think it sort of played better watching it back than it did in the building that night. It was a night with so many highs, so many ups and downs with the stop and start. And then the Bad Bunny thing was already so big that I think crowd wise, you can get some fatigue by the time you get to the main event.
Right.
But when you go back and watch that match, I think that Sasha has had a great career. That's the match that she should hang her hat on. It was really beautifully done, beginning to end. So the triple threat or Sasha and Bianca. And like I said, I mean, you talk about a big attraction match. That's what the Bad Bunny match was there for. And to have it be that good, to me, it was the best celebrity involvement ever at WrestleMania.
That was going to be my question. As a big fan of music and a fan of yours on Hot 97, I wanted to get your opinion on the Bad Bunny presentation, his match, and if you thought that was the best celebrity involvement, Yeah,
it has to be. I mean, he cared for it the most. He's such a huge fan. He put in the work, and then the match they executed, and give Miz and Morrison their credit. I mean, they made him look like $1 million, and he did too. It was so legit over with the crowd,
which was shocking to me.
It was perfectly set up for people to boo or not be interested because you could feel like, all right, we get it, Bad Bunny. It's kind of been forced. We get it. No, it was awesome. It completely delivered. So there are a few matches that to me is the telltale sign of a great WrestleMania. When afterwards, there are 3 or 4 matches that you can be like, yo, those mattered. Even the best ones. That's what you're hoping for. 3 or 4.
Right.
Sure. Absolutely. Peter, where can people find you? I mean, I think you'd have to be living under a rock if you didn't know Peter Rosenberg, but where can people find you, Pete?
Well, I think for this audience, most important is just to search for that Cheap Heat podcast, wherever you download podcasts, and check out what me and SGG and Dipperstein do on a weekly basis. This week, we talked to Triple H, had a really interesting conversation about the state of NXT and moving to Tuesday and sort of the future there. You can follow me on social media and see everything else I'm doing. But for the wrestling fans, definitely look up that Cheap Heat podcast.
Awesome, man. Peter, thanks so much for jumping on. We appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, and we hope to have you back in the future, my friend.
Would love to do it. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, sir.
All right, peace.